What's up, everybody? This is Ralph Amsden, co-host of the C-Town Rivals podcast. We're about to be joined by Brett Quintyne and Chili to talk about last week's action in Chandler-area football. But before I do that, just a reminder that the C-Town Rivals podcast is brought to you by ArizonaVarsity.com, the Rivals affiliate site covering all Arizona high school football and basketball in the state of Arizona. You can support us by becoming a subscriber. Just jump onto ArizonaVarsity.com, and if you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. It costs about $8.33 a month to support all that we do. Subscribing to Arizona Varsity helps us bring you content just like what you're about to listen to. We are also part of the ArizonaSportsCast.com podcast network. ArizonaSportsCast.com hosts podcasts covering Chandler-area football, like you're about to listen to with the C-Town Rivals podcast, as well as high school sports from around the state, the Arizona State Sun Devils, the Phoenix Suns, and Arizona Cardinals. So if you could go ahead and search for Arizona Sportscast on iTunes, become a subscriber, leave a review, that would be fantastic. Without further ado, let's get you to this week's episode of the C-Town Rivals podcast.
Week 1 of the 2019 season is in the books with another solid showing of all of the area schools. Always great to talk football with my guys Ralph Amsden and Chili as we do so across the board at the 3, 4, 5, and 6A levels. The population is growing in the CUSD and the city of Chandler, so we're going to touch on 8 schools today. Yes, 8 are included in the podcast. 5-2 was the record of our teams, with one team seeing their season opener coming up this week. But guys, more importantly, unfortunately, there was a death in the CUSD family. Ralph, wow, Matt McGrane, his mom, unfortunately no longer with us, and I know you spearheaded a very big effort, an effort that's continuing to be ongoing.
I actually had somebody who's a member of the Basha family, the longtime Chandler family, the Bashas, reach out to me and say, like, hey, this happened. Can you spread the word? And, you know, we have this platform. What's the point of having a platform unless you're going to use it to help people when they need it? And so, it wasn't really even a second thought to push it out to everyone that I could. And that, you know, all the other news the media entities were on board and everything. But I was able to message back and forth with Matt. I lost my mom in an accident, and so, you know, it's something that never really kind of goes away. But the thing that kind of paves some of those potholes on the road to healing is community support. And, you know, as of this morning when I woke up, less than 24 hours, you know, 500 different donors at about $60 a pop, over $30,000.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
A funeral could be a lot to plan for and prepare for. So to be able to not have to worry about the financial aspect of that when you have so much else to worry about is a big help. And then, you know, hopefully he's got a lot of people who are going to stay in his life, and then the football season can provide a little bit of some brotherhood and a distraction. And yeah, I mean, this is just the reality of life. So we hope that, you know, as things happen in the Arizona high school football community, or definitely in the city of Chandler, that people continue to lift each other up, because we are all we've got.
Absolutely, and indeed there are rivalries on the field, but off the field you use the word brotherhood, and I think that truly is something that holds true. The Chandler and even the Gilbert community is all one big camaraderie.
I always say, like, how our Arizona high school football community is, like, the best, like, in the world. And since I've been around the world, like, I've seen a lot of different types of sports communities. But I thought it was amazing seeing, like, Pinnacle donated, and all these other schools stepped up, and even, you know, Basha went out of their way to make sure that they showed their support on Twitter and stuff like that.
Dude, I went through, I looked at that donor list, and recognized probably 50 names of current and former high school football players, you know, from, you know, and then different booster clubs and things like that. But I mean,
Chandler, I know Chandler.
And Hamilton has been very influential, yes.
But I mean, you saw Brock Purdy on there, and people, you know, like, and so this community is important to people, and they don't forget. And it's not the first time that Perry's had to go through something like this, unfortunately, and it won't be the last, because it's an enormous student body, and we all live lives, and the only thing that's guaranteed is that things are going to go right some days and wrong some other days. And so, but it was encouraging just to see how many people. The same names that I see pop up and regularly watch Chili's Tuesday live stream were some of the same names of kids who were donating the $5 to $10 that they, would have spent at Starbucks this week to making sure that they can celebrate this woman's life. So, a pretty cool thing to come out of a pretty terrible situation. And this is one of the things that I reached out to him and I was talking to him and told him was that this is going to be one of those things that will it's never going to go away. You're never not going to be sad about this, but someday you're going to realize like how much gratitude was built up in this moment, and how much you draw from the best you saw in others when you were at your worst. So hopefully we can continue to be that for each other. And I'm definitely encouraged by some of the people in this community and what they've done.
Absolutely, yes. Once again, our thoughts and prayers are with the McGrane family. Well, let's move on to the actual gridiron, and I'll just start it off with the Seton Catholic Sentinels. They'll open on Friday at St. Mary's. The Knights, not a team that should be taken lightly. St. Mary's posted a 5-5 record a year ago. Seton was victorious in that 2018 opener, 39-21. Pete Walheim back on the sidelines, and we hope to have him on the podcast at some point during the year. Again, it was the Sentinels making it all the way to the quarterfinals a year ago. As for teams that actually did see action in Week 1, the ACP Knights defeated Chandler Prep 31-17. Arizona College Prep scored in every quarter. They were led by quarterback Mark Chavez, 200 yards in the air, 3 touchdown passes to 3 different receivers. Richard Williams with 178 yards out of the backfield. He's their workhorse. Chili, nice job by Brian Dyson with 3 catches for 102 yards. I know you like those small-time receivers when they come out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, I love the talent that's over there, and the energy is absolutely amazing. What they're building over there in terms of the proverbial word culture, I think they got it, and they're going to be fun to watch for a couple seasons to come, hopefully. And it just starts now.
Absolutely. Myron Bluford definitely doing a real solid job over there. They'll head out to Coolidge on Friday to take on a Bears team that is now led by former Hamilton assistant Roger Shanks. The Valley Christian Trojans, they come up shutout winners over Scottsdale Christian 43-0. Vinny Legata with 3 TD passes, and Justin Stinson, he heads up a defense with a pair of interceptions. Ralph, very simply, Kirk Sundberg, he's in the midst of pushing this team to new heights.
He is, and it's helpful to have a Swiss Army knife like Vinny Legata out there. I think I looked and saw that he was one of the leading receivers, too. I think 2 catches for 36, 38 yards or something like that. And so it's good to know that he's still getting moved all over the field. There's not really much you can do when you have a guy go out and line up under center and then he goes into motion to the outside. You're like, what is it that I'm dealing with here? And so the good win for them, though. I mean, Scottsdale Christian, remember, this is a team that just a couple of years ago was competing for a championship with Jack Miller as their quarterback, and he actually had some weapons with him to go out and get a dominating win against a school that I don't know if Valley Christian has really a true rival, but I know that there's probably 10 or 12 schools out there that don't mind seeing Scottsdale Christian lose. From my experience covering some of the smaller schools, they're sort of the one that everybody loves to hate. And so to go out there and to get a big win over them, which should move them forward into, I think they're back at NAU to go play on that big stage again. And so that's good for them. I know they can't take anything for granted, but, Chino Valley, I think, lost to what I would consider to be a weaker team.
Correct.
So, they can really start this season off on the right foot if they continue this momentum. One thing that we're not used to from Valley Christian is to go out there and, be putting up like 40 points a game.
That's very true.
They've been able to grind out some wins, but to go out and just dominate, that would speak volumes of this program. And did I see we got the athletic director's son scored a touchdown?
Yes, I believe it's Shane Hagsma.
Yeah, so that was...
Yes, indeed. And that truly is a family school.
Yeah.
Because I want to say Shane has another older brother who may have played baseball at some point at Valley Christian. And then, of course, we have Coach Zimmer, or former Coach Zimmer, who's still in the school. His daughter was very instrumental in that big run that the Valley Christian girls did. So overall, Valley Christian has always impressed me. Small family-type school. And let's project
multiple coaches there that have coached multiple sports.
And who knows,
I'm always
maybe
a big fan of that.
10 or 11 years, we'll see.
We always encourage our kids to play multiple sports, so why not have the coaches?
Why not coach multiple sports? I like that.
10 or 11 years, maybe we'll see a little Sunberg scoring some touchdowns.
Oh, there'd be like 4 of them at school at the same time. He's got like 4 kids under age 5. Absolutely. So God bless him.
Hey, is it possible Vinny Legata might be one of the first kids to ever throw for 1,000, run for 1,000, catch for 1,000?
Oh, here we go.
Last year he was 600, 600, and 400.
He's going to improve on those numbers.
This is like the Connor Soley crazy stats you would throw out. But it's good to set goals, I guess.
Hey, I'm just curious. I'd like to see it.
And Valley Christian's next action, as you said, Chino Valley, they'll play up at the Sky Dome in Flagstaff. That game on Saturday, not on Friday night. The Casteel Colts, they gave the 2-time defending state 5A champion Centennial Coyotes a very competitive game, but come up short 34-27. Both teams scored in every quarter. Chili, we talked about the transfer exodus from Casteel this past spring, but it was good to see quarterback Dane Christensen fire some strikes.
Yeah, Dane Christensen definitely proven to be the guy. The junior quarterback threw for 176 yards and a touchdown. No interceptions against this tough Centennial team that, is always hungry for turnovers. The thing that surprised me the most, though, is the way they kind of contained Centennial's offense. I know that Jonathan Morris didn't really get a chance to go over 100 yards passing, and I know that I don't think that they had a 100-yard rusher either.
I don't think they did.
Centennial. So I'm stunned at what the defense was able to do. I mean, it's really a bright shining light on the Casteel program right now because of that mass exodus that happened in the offseason, all the pieces that they lost due to graduation and stuff like that. Right. But man, Brock Diu certainly anchoring that line, one of my favorite offensive linemen out there, and just really literally paving the way. And what this man, I pleasantly stunned, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasantly
stunned.
I
agree. I definitely agree, considering we saw Centennial really stick it to them in the opening game last year. But we'll see what they bring.
And so, Ralph, I'm curious, does this mean that Casteel has actually gone up and maybe Centennial's paring down?
You beat me to it. I was going to ask you that question.
No, I got to get you this time.
But the way I was going to phrase it was, do you believe that result is more of a credit to Casteel or a discredit to Centennial? So I think we had the same exact question on our mind. I don't really know how to answer that because we got into the same debate when they played last year, and Centennial ran out of gas, and Casteel put up 20 on them in the fourth quarter alone, and probably could, honestly, if that had gone to a fifth quarter, Centennial would have been in trouble because they were just in so much better shape. So is this a credit to their offseason training? I know they've been doing a lot recently. I went out and actually spoke at Casteel to the players and as they were sort of just developing their bond, and talked to them about social media. And Brad Sesmat had the coach talk about all of his life, his very unique life and his upbringing. And it was really kind of the first time I think a lot of them saw him open up about what he's gone through. And he talked about his son, who I think did his son get his had a catch, but did he get in the end zone?
No,
I don't think he did.
I don't think
Isaac
so.
Newcomb. I did see that he had registered some stats, which I thought was pretty cool. But I mean, I think that the culture of Casteel is developing. I think it's there.
Newcomb did get in the end zone.
So
wow.
Newcomb scored a touchdown, which I thought was pretty cool.
2 receptions, 14 yards, 1 touchdown.
Yeah, it was a family affair weekend. I love it. But I will say that it's an interesting debate to have. Maybe we just have 2 really good teams. I will say that it has to make Centennial coaches sick to see Brock Diu out there looking like a Centennial offensive lineman, but just living on the Far East Side. That dude, that is the most Centennial offensive lineman I've ever seen not be in a Centennial uniform. He plays for Casteel, but I mean that is a Centennial Coyote in a Casteel Colts uniform.
For all my differences that I've recently had, like with Casteel, like the program seems a little rigid around me. It's whatever. I will say Bobby Newcomb is one of the smartest football minds out there, and that should be no surprise to anybody. He has a storied football past.
Sure.
He knows the game inside out. And I'm wondering if, maybe it was, his not superior IQ to his counterpart, but his ability, ability to really draw the most out of the players that he has that have bought into his system, and really put it out there on Friday night versus Centennial. Because I mean, man, the job that they were able to do, like, it's a testament to somebody. And right now, I kind of want to give it to
Newcomb.
I kind of want to give it to Coach Newcomb and the players that stuck with the program and believed and bought in. This is what we talk about all the time: believe, buy in, sacrifice, do it for the team. And I think that they did that.
I mean, for me, I'll say I'm going to, and we never pass judgment on any of these schools. I'm going to wait till like week 3 to just kind of see what they've done. Maybe Casteel played over their heads. Maybe it's exactly what you said, Chili, as far as Newcomb knowing how to maximize the talent of every last kid. They always say the biggest difference that a football team makes is from week 1 to week 2. So we'll see how both Centennial and, more importantly for this podcast in this area, we'll see what Casteel does moving forward.
And Casteel, I mean, they won games 2 through 5 last year by an average of 50. So I mean, it will be fascinating to weigh last year against this year. Just another comment on Coach Newcomb, though. I think we see a lot of people in the coaching profession lead with their moxie, or they believe that you have to be excitable to motivate people. I think there's kind of a fake it till you make it attitude too. Like, maybe I don't privately believe in what our team is capable of, but I'm going to go out there. I'm going to give them that speech anyway. I'm going to try to fire them up. I'm going to when I face the media, I'm going to be, excitable. And I think that there's a lot of that out there, and I think that it's jarring to run into a coach like Bobby Newcomb, who that's not
complete opposite
any way what he's about. If anything, he's going to undersell what they have going on, and he's going to truly wear his humility on his sleeve as far as, he's been around programs that have had success. He knows the work that it takes. He looks at his kids, and if they're not doing the work that it takes to have success, then they need to up their game. But there's no reason to go out there and hard sell, these kids and this team to the media or anything like that. And I know that there's an attitude of oh yeah, well, you got to help sell your program. You got to get out there, and that helps get their names out there for recruiting and everything. And it's really a difference of philosophies. You can have coaches out there who are quiet and genuine and let the program speak for itself and have success in that manner. You can be a mix of that, like a Jason Mons from Saguaro, or you can be somebody who's just constantly throwing names of people out there who might not necessarily be what they say they are. And then that ultimately, I think, reflects poorly on your credibility afterward.
Real quick, I just wanted to show love to Benjamin Blancas, who led the team in rushing with 90 yards, Grady Burns, who led the team in receiving with 94 yards, and a gunner on the defensive side leading the team in tackles, Gunner Reedhead, with 11 total tackles. So might be nice to have a gunner leading the defense now, since you had one leading the offense last year.
Is Ty Detmer over there as a QB? Coach,
I think he is a QB coach over there,
all right,
working closely with Dane Christensen.
And that's good to always have that extra NFL presence. Obviously, last year was Mark McMillan, this year Ty Detmer. So no, it's I mean, we want some great things to happen to Casteel, and obviously Week 1 showed that they can compete against anybody.
Ty Detmer stole a Heisman from Rocket Ismail. Maybe he can help Casteel steal a 5A title from the rest of the field. I'm still bitter. I love Rocket.
Actually, and we'll talk about Basha in a minute. Here's kind of a little trivia scenario. The night that Ty Detmer won the Heisman Trophy, obviously he played for BYU. Micah Harper's dad was a defensive back for Hawaii, intercepted him 3 times on that day.
On the day he won the Heisman?
Yes.
Rocket should have won. Anyway, moving on. I'm not even a Notre Dame fan yet.
Kenny Harper, Micah's dad.
That's a really crazy story.
Yes, that's good stuff. But Bobby Newcomb's club, they'll host the Apollo Hawks on Friday. The Hawks coming off a 21-14 win over Desert Mountain. The Perry Pumas, they took it on the chin, 39-14 by the Pinnacle Pioneers. This was a game I was at. It was 18-14 Pinnacle at the half, but the Pioneers do a second-half shutout at Perry and route to the victory. Ralph, you were there for a while. Let me get your take on it, and then I'll fill in the blanks.
Perry's bigger than I thought. I mean, Hunter Scott on the offensive line. He's listed at 245, but
Yes.
I mean that's a big guy. The Brock Lane, tight end, 6'4", 225. I mean he is all of that. Andre Mayberry as a safety looks like most teams' biggest linebackers.
Right, he's solid
out there. Good Lord, Jackson Ford was flying to the ball. I mean, flying to the ball. I thought that Perry came out there and made a statement in that first quarter with their defense. What ended up happening in my mind is that they took J.D. Johnson's running ability for granted, which, I mean, why wouldn't you?
Right, sure.
Sure. And there was a play, the game turned on a very specific play, and I want to see if you agree with me on this, Brett, where J.D. Johnson, like the first half was kind of winding down. J.D. Johnson was at about midfield, and a little bit of pressure got to him, so he rolled out to the left. And then he sort of started to run toward the line of scrimmage, and then not once but twice hesitated like he wanted to throw the ball. But there was probably 35 yards of space in front of him.
Absolutely.
And it looked like you could watch him go through the thought process of like, screw it, I'll go.
Right.
And I think maybe he only gained like 16, 17 yards on that play. But it was, to me, at that moment, it was like, okay, if Perry doesn't make an adjustment and now JD's got it in his mind that he can run, there's going to be trouble. And before I left, JD had scored a rushing touchdown.
Yep.
And then that really, I think, opened things up for Perry's offense to do some other things.
Pinnacle's offense.
For Pinnacle's offense to do some things against Perry's defense. They were having a hard time guarding that slant that 13 was running over the middle. He scored a touchdown on that in the second quarter. But for a minute, it looked like Perry's defense really had their stuff together. I think they've got the talent. I love the sophomore Stephen Kennedy, sophomore defensive end, number 37. Kid's got the biggest feet I've ever seen.
Sure.
I think that he's 6'1", he's 6'1", 200 now, but he's somebody that I could see. He reminds me kind of Caleb Pert from Hamilton, who went to Vanderbilt. If he stays at 6'1" and puts a few pounds of muscle on, then that's what he's going to be. But if he grows into those feet, and all of a sudden you're looking at a terror coming from the outside at 6'4", 6'5". So I was encouraged by some of the stuff that I saw. A little bit confused by the offense.
Yes. Well, here's the thing with the Pumas are going to have to find a running game. That's
so how many times have we said that?
Well, they lost 2,400 yards of rushing.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and
that's
you figure they had the three-headed monster last year of Burns, Peyton Hill, and another one's escaping. Burns.
Jaden Young was playing a little bit of running back last year. Now he's more of like a
right, but they lost three. They had the three-headed monster running. Obviously, gone is Kenny Foltz, so they're gonna have to find somebody. And again, going from week 1 to week 2, they'll probably find it. They've got a big roster, but their running game, I'm gonna say, was ineffective. And when you take a running back out of it, and you can kind of key in on Chubba Purdy, and that's where it really kind of that was the difference. Pinnacle in the second half was able to run Matt Goodlow all over the place. That kept Perry's defense on the field, chewed up a lot of yards. We talked about that big freshman that Pinnacle has.
Deuce Robinson.
Yeah, Deuce Robinson caught a big pass. So I think the big thing was Perry's defense was on the field a little bit longer than they wanted. They didn't have the running game to kind of counter some of that. And consequently, we saw the pick six, and that's where the score was.
I think Chubba's good enough, and Chile, I don't think you'll disagree with this. Chubba's good enough to carry you against most teams.
Yeah,
but a top-tier team,
but not a
Pinnacle. Right, no, exactly.
Not a top-tier team. I think Perry has a lot to take away from this, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of bright spots, because you know what? One, from the sound of it, Pinnacle really could have had their way, and they have a Division I quarterback going to Michigan.
Correct.
And he ended up with only 171 yards passing. Plus, Marcus Libman is one of the most talented wide receivers in the state, and he didn't crack 100 yards receiving. So, I mean, I really think that Pinnacle has a lot to, look back on and be like, I guess like the quote-unquote like moral victory of this,
Very true.
We held their star quarterback under 200 yards passing. We held their star wide receiver under 100 yards receiving. Matt Goodlow only got like 106 or something like that. I think Perry, they're going to be fine, but they needed this win.
Right.
And me and Ralph have talked about this. For that open 8, you need...
Yes, that is a win that was very needed. And it's one of those things we all agree Pinnacle is kind of an elite team, an upper echelon team. And yes, Chubba Purdy certainly... I think they'll...
It's not the best defense they're going to play against this year. Not by a long shot. That's what worries me is that what Pinnacle's defense was able to do against this offense. Because, I mean, we saw Xavier James with a big touchdown catch.
Yeah.
We saw Chubba was able to run around a little bit. But, I mean, there was a moment when Chubba was yelling back at the sideline, which you don't see very often, yelling back at the sideline when they were trying to get on him. And he's letting them know, I'm getting hit. That's what he kept yelling.
Right.
I'm getting hit. Every time he drops back, I'm getting hit. And that offensive line, I feel, was doing an okay job, but Pinnacle's defense was showing a little bit of different looks, and Chubba was maybe holding too long, and
because they did shut him out in the second half.
Yeah,
and that's huge.
I think ultimately, there were a lot of things that I was very impressed by. I'm concerned with the result because this offense, if your defense isn't, Perry's defense did its job. You might see 39 points on the scoreboard,
right?
And I think everybody in this room knows how hard I've been on Perry's defense.
And in reality, it's 32 because it was a pick six involved. So
but I looked at Perry's defense and I was like, they're doing pretty much everything they can,
right? Because they shut out Pinnacle in the first quarter.
Yeah, and so I was encouraged. It feels weird to be on the other side of this, but I was really encouraged by what Perry did defensively, and I'm just confused about what they're trying to have their offensive identity be, how they're trying to use some of those weapons. Can they use James on some bubbles? What's a better way to make sure the ball gets in Jordan Young's hands a few more times? Can they use Jordan Young the way that Basha used Cole Lundberg last year to just constantly shift him around because he's a weapon? So
I think once Perry finds a running game, I think they'll be okay. And again, the athleticism that Pinnacle showed is better than most of the teams are going to see on their schedule, especially before the Premier Region.
Right now, who does Perry miss more? This three-headed monster in the backfield or Colby Dickey? Colby Dickey was that guy that could always get you that tough reception, always move the chains. And I know I'm comparing the three running backs, and I'm not trying to do those three running backs like that, but man, those running backs could also...
That's a great question. I say that because you figure for years, we've seen any time that Perry has the ball, they have multiple, who can break one, whether it's a Nate James, a Deshane James, a Colby Dickey, a Fultz. They always had a game breaker that the other team had to fully respect. And again, this is only week one. There's a lot of football. This was the first time in a while that I'm sitting back and I don't necessarily see an immediate game breaker. That's not a disrespect to James or Young, but I'm going to say they missed Dickey.
That's what I think too.
I think that your question is more profound than any answer that we could give, and it's that they lost both. It's occurring to me for the first time when you bring it up that oh my gosh. And they did lose all of that and Braden Rome.
Right.
So maybe.
And even the Mixon and Pat, that's exactly right.
It wasn't just Patterson. They had two tight ends out there that have been making plays the last couple of years. They really need a healthy Brock Lane to step up.
Yeah, this is the identity is what they're going to have.
This is becoming as great as Chubba Purdy is and can be, can he do it by himself?
Correct.
Honestly, I think Jordan Young can emerge one way, but he can't do both.
He cannot do both.
I think he could either try to be Colby Dickey, or I think he could try to help that running game, like Ralph was trying to say, move him around and stuff. But if you spread him around like that, man,
they're gonna have to. Now, this was the first home game they lost to a team not named Chandler since October 23rd of 2015 when Basha got him with Ryan Kelly 56-28. So it was a little different. And then also just throwing it out there, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. In looking at the last two Perry games, they've given up a score of 104 points. Obviously, the 65 to Chandler in the title game and 39 the other night. So, Perry's going to have to find themselves, and I think they will. I don't think that's definitely an issue. The Hamilton Huskies, they are led by Mike Zadebski and his team. They come up with a 44-21 win over Chaparral. Chili, what I like about this win is that 4 different guys had rushing touchdowns, and your guy, Nick Arve, he had a pair of touchdown passes. Great to see that they scored 28 second half points. Always good to see a team pull away.
Real quick, I want to say, Jack Miller is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and when you have one of the best quarterbacks in the country, he's going to find ways to do things. His stat line was 270 yards and 1 touchdown. My man, Nicky Friday, did his thing with almost 260 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, I am not out of my mind, and I am not going to say that he absolutely outplayed Jack Miller, but I am going to say that he put up a stat line that was in line with the best quarterback in the country. Nicky Friday did what he had to do, and shout out to Brendan Rice. He did not forget. He went out and did his thing. What was it, like 150, 160 yards receiving and a pair of touchdowns, and hey, all them kids that did all that rushing work. Zach Lewis got in the end zone with one. Dorman,
Sebastian Dorman, yeah.
Man, hey, Hamilton might be back. Hamilton might be back.
Wait.
Jeremiah
Trojan
had Jeremiah Trojan. Hey, hold on 1 second. Jeremiah Trojan had this defense looking like the USC Trojans from back in the day.
From back in the
day. I am just trying to say, the Huskies might be back, and it might be time for these neighboring Chandler schools to
slow down.
Stop hitting that snooze button.
Oh boy.
Stop hitting that snooze button. Nicky Friday is a problem and something that you're going to have to deal with weekly. Know that.
You took me from getting ready to like eat crow and grovel and apologize to Hamilton to after what you just said. Now I got to jump back on this horse of saying they still have to prove it.
Nobody wants to run a Jeremiah Trojan.
You're right.
Nobody.
It's really, really cool to get a win against Chaparral. That brand is strong. They've only played 2 times in history. It was great to get some revenge over what happened last year to open the year. But here's the deal. Jack Miller was running for his life all game long.
Why is that?
You tell me. This brings us back to another question. Is it a credit to Hamilton or a discredit to some of the stuff that's going on at Chaparral? 2 years in a row, he's had what was probably going to be, his either top or second best receiver transfer of the program. There is no Tommy Christakos. That offensive line probably doesn't have a single player that I know of that's going to go on to play at the next level. You know, that outside of Camden Hightower and Jack Miller, is this even a team that could compete to be a playoff team in the 6A? And so I want to say it's a good win, but I don't think you get that swag back after a good win, especially when that swag was a we expect this swag. So you can't have people out there like tweeting like, oh, we're back, oh, I got mine, and all that stuff. When if you talk about Hamilton being back, it was like, why did they score 14?
Well, first off,
why did they score 20? We never should have even let them get the chance.
First off, and Brett will attest to this, I know he will. Anytime that you have a quarterback with the capabilities of Jack Miller, they're going to find a way to put 14 to 21 on the board.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Jack Miller he's going to Ohio State for a reason. And yes,
they made sure that Brett Hundley didn't. They made sure that Brian Lewerke had trouble doing it. Hamilton.
Jack's different.
Interesting. Wow. Moving right along, in a sense, I will say this. Hamilton has a very key game coming up on their schedule next week, playing against Highland. I think that game starts to dictate which way that Hamilton can go. If they beat Highland, I don't know if I'm going to say they're back the way you did, but it certainly shows that this program has made tremendous strides. Obviously, Highland is not the team that they were last year, but a win over the Hawks, I think, is like, wow, Hamilton is winning some solid games. A Highland victory, all right, hey, Hamilton has some work to do.
There's no reason Hamilton should lose this game. None.
To Highland?
None.
Highland is still a very, very talented
Hamilton's
team.
back, Chili.
Hamilton is back. And
Then
they're
there
going to
is
close
no
that
reason.
gap from getting beat by 30 last year to Highland.
Over the course of 2 days.
Over the
Remember
course
that?
of 2 days.
Yeah, but
They
that
didn't
was
just
a
get
close
beat one
game.
day, but they got beat one day, and then they got beat the second day, too.
Nah,
in different uniforms.
these aren't
that's actually what happens
these aren't the
on vlog.
conversations you have about Hamilton if they're back. You talk about whether Highland's going to get on the board. So I don't think, just the fact that we're having this conversation right now, Hamilton's not back. It's a long road. They need to, and this is just another step on that road. And there's no reason that they should lose.
Oh, so
None.
there's like 10 steps around the 10-step program?
Hey,
You put Hamilton on the 10-step
no.
program?
A successful Hamilton season is a 14-step program where they're usually playing 14 games in a season. They didn't even make the freaking playoffs last year. We're one game removed from that. I don't want to talk about Hamilton being back until they go out and they handle the business that they should handle against Highland.
Well,
Highland
they went
has
out and handled the
good
business
year.
they should handle against Chaparral. Week 1. So now...
You're right, they did.
So
And I'd
now...
like to see them beat Highland. Let's try to get them to 2.
And that's going to be a task because Zach Schroeder, Daniel Wood, all those kids, Gage Daly, they are not going to be slept on no more. They want it too. So I'm really curious to see. Maybe Ralph's right. Maybe Ralph's right. And, maybe that this Hamilton team isn't really as good as, I'm hyping them up to be. Maybe the Wyatt Milkovics and the Cole Martin's coming up. They're not sure what hungry
Can I
system
stop you on the
they're
Cole
buying
Martin thing?
into.
Cole Martin was listed as having 2 interceptions, but Jack Miller wasn't listed as having thrown any interceptions on Max Preps. Because I wanted to give a shout out to Cole Martin. If he literally, in
actually
his
picked
first
him off
varsity
twice.
game, came out and picked somebody off twice, I was ready to jump up and down. And so I might have to go watch some huddle highlights or something because when I was looking at Chaparral's stats, and I don't know if Chaparral's going the whole like Jim Rattay lying about what kids did in games route, but if Jack didn't throw any picks, how do you get to interceptions on your stat line? So that's something I got to look into. I should have looked into it before we started recording.
I'm not going to say that Chaparral out there lying, but I can't imagine that Hamilton would make some ghost interceptions up.
Somebody clicked the wrong button, or somebody didn't click the right button. So we gotta figure that out because if Cole Martin got 2 interceptions in his first ever varsity start as a freshman, my goodness, you're gonna start hyping him up like a different Cole that played defensive back at
Mr.
Hamilton.
Luke?
Yes,
Well, Nicky Friday was 20 of 24.
that was the most impressive stat that I
That's
saw.
20 of 24.
That
Good
efficiency.
stuff. So Highland at Hamilton this Friday. I think it's a key game for both teams. The Basha Bears, they shut out North High School 56-0. Complete domination from start to finish. Running clock at halftime. First off, Derek Bass, the kicker, 8 of 8 on extra points, which means 8 touchdowns were scored. Quarterback Gabe Friend, 12 of 13 with 3 TD passes. 6 different guys scored touchdowns. Just a true team victory, Ralph.
I talked to Micah Harper on Saturday night, and he just said that it was in hand. Mm-hmm. It was truly from the get-go that game was in hand. And that's not something that Bash has been able to do a lot of.
Not in a long time. You're
And
right.
even last year, they played some great defense and in spots had trouble getting their offense going. And that efficiency from Gabe Friend is exactly what you want. You want the stars to be able to show up and play like stars. Perfect performance from Basha going into what is going to be a giant test this week.
Absolutely. They'll head out to Sandra Day O'Connor on Friday to take on an Eagle team that scored 60 in their opening win over Mason.
Man, I'm super hyped for this, man, because I love this fleet of receivers that they got over there at Basha, which we really haven't seen for a couple of years now since,
since Terrell Brown stepped out and days of Doc O'Connor,
Zion Williams, son. I think that he's man, 4 catches, 84 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 tutties, as Ralph would like to say.
Don't care for that word.
I'm excited. I think that Basha has a lot to be excited about.
Absolutely.
And this matchup with O'Connor is going to be amazing because I'm telling you, Chase Folkstead, the defensive end over there, I think is going to be a handful for these Basha Bears. But I know that Sliskovich and DiPodesta will be able to hold their own.
Damian Ortiz is...
Micah Harper is going to have his hands full.
Yeah, well, so here, get this. Here's a fun stat. Damian Ortiz has 16 touchdowns in his last 8 games.
Okay.
So, that's wild. He has 10 straight games against Arizona opponents where he has scored a touchdown. The only one of those games where he didn't have a receiving touchdown, last year against Basha. Okay. He did get in the end zone. I think he ran for a touchdown.
Ran for one? Okay.
But, if Basha can repeat that defensive performance, keep him out of the end zone in the air, that's going to be huge. But all of a sudden, O'Connor's spreading the ball around to all their other receivers.
Phoenix Payton's another one blowing up. He had like 100 yards receiving last week, and Dylan Simonton is really picking up where Ethan Muller left off and just like all over the place.
So, and you never know, because sometimes Mesa's just bad. So you never.
Bad.
We got to be honest, man. Mesa is.
Well, I had to buy them donuts for Chandler last year because
shut out on all three levels.
Yeah. Like once every 4 or 5 years.
And that's hard to do.
It is. No, you're right. That is.
And once every 4 or 5 years, Mesa will have a halfway decent team, but I mean they're just bottom of the barrel most of the time. And so, is O'Connor?
Was that year? Yes.
Is O'Connor good and also, this is like as far we joke about how far Brett lives, but like O'Connor is.
Like the other
3 times farther in the opposite direction.
I actually drove there in the off season, and it is like about the equidistant. Like I'm in
okay. Okay. All right.
No. See, that starts to get old, Chili. It really does.
So anyway,
you are closer to Casa Quintyne than you are to Sandra Day O'Connor.
I don't know if I can admit that.
You don't have to admit it. You can just Google Maps will tell you the truth.
But if I'm Basha, I get the day off. And drive out there in the morning. Go to a movie.
Facts.
Go to a movie somewhere in the area. Out by where the 70 like an anthem that harkens on the way out by the 74 interchange. Exactly. Yes. Just go out there, watch a movie, stay out there all day, do your classwork out there because I mean you try to drive that game, you get caught in traffic. I mean, you're going to be playing pretty angry first couple of quarters of that game. So, I mean, I don't know if that's going to affect them because it's, I'm sure there's a lot of teams that feel that way about driving out to Basha. But, big road game for them. And Basha's got some good players. We're going to find out who's for real.
Right.
I guess
think
in
that's
this game.
where weeks 2 and 3 are starting to kind of bubble up. So, yeah, we'll see what the Basha Bears can do. And last but not least, the Chandler Wolves. Back-to-back state championships. They open the year in Nevada and they defeat the Liberty Patriots 31-17. Senior running back Day Hunter with 131 yards and a pair of scores. Mikey Keene jumps right in with 227 in the air. Chile, as we like to say, the Wolves continue to do Chandler things. They've now won 14 in a row.
I've been trying to say that Mikey Keene is going to be that guy and he's going to be okay. I think the transition from him to from Conover to him is going to be a lot smoother and easier than the transition was from Mason to Conover.
Sounds good.
I think for 150,000 different reasons. One of them is because it seems like Keene is fully embraced into the system already, and it's like he's already ready. Like it's something that he knows. Like
he's in his 4th year in the system for sure.
And I think the emergence of Day Hunter is going to prove to be very complimentary to what they already got in the backfield with Jaheim the Jet Brown.
Now, something I'll ask you guys in regards to Day Hunter. That name is brand new to me.
Brand new to me.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know you guys do the 7 so you guys are a little bit more in with the program.
So,
tell us about
I believe Day is a transfer
Okay.
from out of state and super talented ball player. I think that he's able to play defensive back and running back. Initially, when I heard about him, I thought that he was going to end up helping in the defensive backfield because I know sometimes Chandler's prone to injuries in that defensive backfield. But, I mean, obviously, he proved that, he can carry the ball. And like I said, I think he's going to be very complimentary to what they already have in the backfield. I will say I have a little concern that, this could turn into a very quote-unquote centennial type situation from last year where they had 4 talented running backs, and how do you spread this ball around and let one guy emerge as the quote-unquote leader who I truly believe is Jaheim the Jet Brown Taylor by inheritance,
right.
Not inheritance of I'm the senior, I should get these reps, but I paid my dues, I went through this system, like I've done this, but this team is talented all over the field, so Mikey Keene, he's going to quote-unquote do some things, and he's going to do some things throwing the ball, and he's going to be finding Keon Grays and all these talented wide receivers that they have over there at Chandler. So I think that people have to understand that Chandler is not going to be defined by one issue or one problem in one area. You're going to have to find a whole bunch of problems in a whole bunch of different areas to sink this ship. They're going to figure out what they got to do to make sure that they harness his running back situation, cluttered backfield or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'll tell you right now, just looking at it and seeing what Day Hunter did, man, they got like 4 kids that could rush for 2,000 yards for any team in the state.
And now, so there's no such thing as seniority at Chandler. The history of this has played out again and again and again. Was Chase Lucas the locked-in starter when he went in and blew up against Centennial in his first game? Not at all. Not at all. Was T.J. Green going into that season where they had 2 or 3 running backs ahead of him? Was he locked in as a starter? So whoever, when they put the ball in your chest and you prove it, you'll be the person that they end up sticking with. Mm-hmm. That's how Chandler's been. You can look real good in practice, but then if you go out there and do it on the field, they're going to find a way to keep you out there. Chili, I want you to do me a favor, because the thing that stood out to me in this game, Chandler and Liberty, was Malik Reed's stat line. Malik Reed's stat line was eye-opening stuff. I think we might be if he can continue this up, we might be looking at like end-of-season award winner Malik Reed.
Rattle it off.
Yeah, Malik Reed I know that he had a sack, and he had, I don't know, at least 10 tackles. He was all over the place. This whole defense was all over the place, so not just Malik Reed. Tate Romney had 15 tackles. Gunnar Maldonado had 12 tackles. Ramon Robinson had 10 tackles. Kyle Orr stood out and had a bunch of tackles. This whole defense, they're hungry. They're not going to be taken for granted. And, I talked to Malik Reed before the season started, and he told me, he's like, hey, man, you guys always show love to our Chandler offense that we putting so many points on the board. Hey, show us some love on the defensive side, too. So, I'm not going to get caught disrespecting Chandler's defense this year the way I got caught, quote-unquote, disrespecting their offensive line the past couple of years. So, hey, real quick shout out to Nehemiah Magley, who I think is one of the best offensive linemen in the state. I want to make sure I put that out there so they don't feel like they're getting their disrespect. But, man, the defense is lights out.
I think Malik had 4 tackles for a loss. And this is a kid.
Big. That's nice.
He did.
This is a kid that had 30 and a half tackles for a loss as a junior.
And so did Kyle Orr.
And so, if I look at, and I know Kyle had a great game, but I look at Malik, and I'm like, if this keeps up, what if he goes 4 a game? What if you're talking? I hate to be chilly on this one and put out some stat that's just absolutely Barry Bonds level insane. But is 50 tackles for a loss in a season something you've ever seen done, or is even possible?
No, it's hard. That's tough.
Could Malik do it?
Possibly.
4 a game for 14 games.
Enough, and they got enough talent on that defense.
What is that, 56?
56, yeah. I'll be at their game at Queen Creek this Friday night. So
I'm thinking about stopping in and checking in for a minute. I got Alex Simpson with me. I think we're going to bounce from game to game. I think that you just heard Chili's dog in the background. I think she's a bulldog. She hears us talking about Queen Creek, and she wants in on it.
That's, good stuff. Well, fellas, we will catch up with everybody in a couple weeks. Ralph Amsden, Chili, I'm Brett Quintyne. We're out.